Ahoy me mateys, and today we'll be checking out another weapon that got buffed with update 21, me hand cannons, the twin Rogga. Oh yes, update 21 did indeed buff me hand cannons, and I think it was sort of a compensation for the fact that they now have damage fall off. The buff is pretty straightforward. They increase the damage from 20 to 40. That's it. Now the damage fall off starts at 10 meters, so it will do 4 damage if you're shooting at an enemy that's less than 10 meters away, but if the enemy is farther than that, the damage will slowly go down to a minimum of 10 damage if the enemy is 20 or more meters away. And because they did double the damage of the weapon, they also increased the mastery rank requirement to 8. Now this is basically just a straight up buff if you use the twin Rogga as a shotgun, which you should because they are classified as a shotgun, so they have pellets, those pellets have spread, and the accuracy on them isn't perfect either. So you don't really want to shoot at enemies that are more than 10 meters away from you because you're just gonna miss pellets and do less damage because of that. Now if you don't have the twin Rogga, you may be thinking, well, good thing they buffed it. I mean, what kind of shotgun does 20 damage? Even 40 is low. But that 40 damage is per pellet, and the twin Rogga shoots 15 of them for a grand total of 600 bloody damage, oh my god, every time you pull the trigger. 300 is puncture, 240 is impact, and 60 is slash. But here's the thing, even though it does a lot of damage, the supportive stats are not the best. It only has 10% crit chance with a 2x multiplier, fire rate of 2.5, only 2 rounds in the magazine with 1.5 second reload, and only 15% status chance. So damage is basically all this weapon has, but luckily it has a lot of it. Now my setup has changed quite a bit, but that's mostly because I got a Riven as a gift. So I'm running Hornet Strike for damage, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, the Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot. I'm still running Quick Draw, so I only have 1 second reload time rather than 1.5. And this is just nice because you only have 2 rounds in the magazine, and having 1.5 second reload on top of that is kind of annoying. Then I've added Prime Pistol Gambit, which brings the crit chance up to 28.7, which for a shotgun is enough because crit on shotguns is calculated per pellet, of which we have loads, especially on secondary weapons because of all the multi-shot. Then comes the Riven called Twin Rogga vexi-visides, which adds electricity damage, raw damage, status duration, which is kind of alright, but it does do less damage to Grenier, which is actually not that big of a deal with all the damage this weapon does. Now I've combined the electricity damage from the Riven with pathogen rounds to create corrosive damage, and finally I've added primed heated charge for loads of heat damage. Now as I've said already, damage is basically all this weapon has, so it's not that great versus heavily armored units. Heavy gunners still go down in about 3 to 4 shots, but something like a bombard is going to take far more. High level bombards, especially once you go up to level 100, have far too much armor for this weapon, so it's gonna take a lot of shots to take them down. But please bear in mind that this is just a handful of units at very high levels. Scorches, for example, which don't have as much armor, just get one shot even at level 100. And it only takes a wee bit of help from something like a Seeking Shuriken or even a Kavat to get rid of that armor, at which point the twin Rogga become unstoppable. When it comes to the Corpus, the weapon murders pretty much everything in 1 or 2 shots because it just does far too much damage for the amount of shields and health that they have, especially since a lot of the physical damage comes in the form of impact, so their shields just disintegrate. And the same goes for the Infested. Once again, the weapon just does far too much damage for the amount of health that they have. So was this buff enough? Did they finally make the twin Rogga viable? Well, here's the thing, these weapons were absolutely fine even before the buff. They already did more than enough damage to take you through the entire star chart and do the majority of sorties as well, and now they're doing double the amount of damage. And yes, it is just raw damage, so they do struggle versus ludicrously overscaled armor on things like bombards and napalms, but nowadays you can get rid of that fairly easily. And once the enemy doesn't have armor, or they didn't have any to begin with, they just die. This is basically like Opticore levels of damage we're talking about here. And the best thing about the twin Rogga is that the fun factor has not changed. There are still these amazing blunderbuss pistols that are a ton of fun, they sound awesome, and they're just a joy to play with. So if you haven't picked the twin Rogga up yet, you should definitely do it now, because they are still amazing and they now do double the amount of damage they did previously. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.